been a long love-hate relationship with cities. They're big and messy.
In New York City or in Shanghai, it's easier to go up 300 meters than it is to travel horizontally 300 meters during much of the day.
If we don't find the solutions in cities, then we're going to have a hard time finding the solutions, because that's where most of people are living, and that is going to increasingly be the case.
Cities emerged about 10,000 years ago. The conventional wisdom is that when we moved to settled agriculture 10,000 years or so ago, cities, or towns as it were, began to grow as agglomerations of population, to do with the division of labour, the increasing surplus in society and so on. And, you know, for thousands of years, technological constraints limited the size of cities.
In 1800, the world population was 1 billion, and of this, 861,000 people lived in London, making it the largest city in Europe. This was largely due to industrialisation, creating huge slums, especially in the eastern parts of London. The Industrial Revolution continued well into the 19th century, and the population continued to grow, as did the slums. Great wealth and devastating poverty lived side by side. In the late 19th century, London went under urban redevelopment projects, and a Slum Clearance Act was passed in 1930, giving more power to local authorities to demolish and build. The building of council houses began. In 1930, the world population had doubled to 2 billion, with 20% now living in urban areas. By 1974, the population had reached 4 billion. Increasing to 5 billion by 1999. In 2008, for the rest of the time in history, more than 50% of the world's population lived in cities. The world has become more than half urban in the last decade. Over 90% of the urban growth is now occurring in the developing world. 1 billion people now live in city slums worldwide, and 2 billion new urban residents are anticipated in the next 20 years. Urban population in South Asia and Africa are expected to double during this period.
Productivity, growth, job creation in most developing countries is moving from rural areas to urban areas. There's a shift from agriculture to manufacturing and services growth, and this is quite obvious in countries like China, India, and I think now increasingly in Africa.
Much of this urban growth now occurs in medium and small-sized cities, with about 53% of the world's urban population living in cities of 500,000 or less. An example of a developing country which is in the dilemma of the ever-increasing migration of people from rural areas to the city is Mumbai. This migration is creating one of the largest slums in Mumbai, called Dharavi. It covers over 600 acres of land with a population of over 1 million. These areas are typically overcrowded, polluted, and lack basic services such as clean water and sanitation.
Are we talking about 60% of the population that provide all the services in the city? From the boy who brings in your milkman, to your newspaper vendor, to the maid who works in your house, to the driver who takes you to work, to the people who work in your factories, to the clerk in the bank, to the municipal corporation, schools, colleges. These people live in the slums. They're the working people of Bombay. If they said halt, Bombay would come to a grinding halt.
Often, the urban poor are vital to the city's economy, and the cities would not function without them. They create a huge workforce of highly skilled labourers. It's Mumbai that has large slum areas. It is a global crisis. There will be an estimated 2 billion people who are living in informal settlements around the world without water and basic sanitation by 2030. Urban slums are not inevitable and can be avoided through good city planning, as is evident in Singapore. Singapore has planned a successful public housing program, which will provide homes for 85% of the population, resulting in a successful urbanization strategy for an economic development.